Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And the purpose of the show is to help you realize that you are not alone. You are in control of your life. It does not matter what your lot in life is or where you came from. We have all felt pain, suffering, hurt, abandonment, loneliness, hopelessness, etc. This show helps you to take those dark moments and turn them around to create a whole new you. We were taught to be a certain way, act a certain way, and conform to society. Being socialized is not bad, but it does put constraints on us. The guests I bring on the show are telling you their story of where they came from, the obstacles they overcame, and where they are today. They are sharing the tools they use to recreate themselves in their life. Some of the guests are still in their process, beginning a new process, comfortable in their process, or reinventing themselves. They are giving you tools that they use to gain insight into themselves, to take control of their life, and become the person they are today. On podcast.KathleenMFlanagan.com is a list of the guests that have been on the show with their contact information. I am aware that you may resonate with one or several of them. My desire is that this becomes a community where you have access to the people you wish to align with and utilize the tools that they have, as well as the tools being offered on the KathleenMFlanagan.com site. I am a certified coach who can help you reach your dreams. I help you to learn how to rely on and believe in your unlimited potential and power. I already know that you've experienced flashes of intuitive knowledge and big thinking, and that has you wondering just how far could you fly, if only. I'm here to help you stir up that innate knowing and self-trust already instilled deep in your soul. I help you to forge forward with the old you rather than giving up and turning back. AwakeningSpirit.com is an aromatherapy-based body care line that offers alternative healing remedies that use natural and organic ingredients. We are offering a 40% discount by entering bravetv into the coupon code. The products are guaranteed. If a product is not working, please contact me and we will reformulate it specifically for you. Grandma'sNaturalRemedies.net is a CBD company that uses essential oils in every blend and either has broad spectrum or an isolate. Every product is tested and the lab results are on the website. And we are offering a 20% discount by entering Brave. I'm sorry, I have two cats on my desk right now, so this is too funny for me. I start the show every week with sound from the tuning forks. I bring in love, happiness, and balance. This sets the tone for the show and brings out the best in both myself and my guest. This little black girl with this fluffy tail, this is Grace. We were supposed to have Julia Marie on the show today, and for some reason she's not here, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her. So I'm going to fly on the show and talk about a variety of things that have been happening in my life, because it's been a while since any of you have really known what's been going on with me. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went to a David Bear seminar, and it was a very enlightening, moving, breakthrough event. Now, as you know, I've studied a little bit under David Bear and what he does about coming into the core of your core limiting beliefs. And that was the reason why I signed up to do his whole human framework, was because I wanted to understand and how to change that original limiting belief. Now, I thought it was unworthiness, but it turned out that it wasn't that, because in the event, I had a coaching call or a coaching session with one of the guys, and I was just, vomited all over him. I mean, it was just so much was coming up and coming out, and he was like, "Oh my God, you're in a breakthrough." And so I ended up deciding I was going to hire David as a coach during that session because I wanted to get to the next level and I knew that I needed help. Well, he was offering a Genesis frequency there, and I had never seen this before. And she, and they did a demonstration, I believe it was Thursday night when I was there. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this because there was just something about it that I had never seen before. And I wanted to have this experience of what this would be like to have this. So I did. And it was not cheap. This was like a $250 session for, I'm sorry, my guest appears to be showing up. Anyways, I'll get with that in a few minutes. So it was $250 for 20 minutes, but the first session I did was an hour, and we went back into the core of the trauma that I had survived in my life, and it was immense, and I just cried a lot. And then she did something, I don't know what it was she did. It was just about energy movement. And I actually went into the womb and I could feel myself like in the fetal position, how we're like this and it's all nice and safe and cozy and wonderful. And whoever wants to come out of the womb when you feel like that. And I didn't want to come out. And I remember looking and going, oh my God, there's this thought form coming in. And I literally watched it come across me and enter. And it was unlovable. That was the actual original thought form that came in, was being unlovable. So undeserved. So it was like I went that one step further. And of course, I was just one of those very emotional. I cried the whole next day. It was one of those things of just really feeling the change that was occurring. And then Spirit told me, that I was supposed to have 2 sessions. And I'm like, oh my God, that's $500. And I thought, okay, well, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. And then Sal comes through and says, I put money in your account, so you make sure you do that second session. So I did the second session, and this time she worked on my breathing. So I was expanding my breath more so I could receive more, I could give more, I could hold more energy. And then she said a little bit is to release a little bit more trauma. Well, what was interesting about the breath was I was going up the escalator to get something to eat. And all of a sudden I'm like looking down going, what's this? What's this? And I'm feeling my lungs expand and contract that I have never seen it. I mean, I was really breathing deeply. And with this Genesis frequency, they say that once the trauma is gone, it doesn't come back. It's completely released. And what I've noticed since I've been back, there's a lot of changes. It's like there's a lot of things that I've noticed is how I'm breathing, because my breathing for right now needs to come in through my mouth and out through my mouth. And I seem to do that a lot more than I'm used to. But I also read 3 of my books because the message that I'm supposed to deliver is in them. And I was blown away by what I saw, how I felt, what I was experiencing, the amount of vulnerability that is coming out in these books. And there's no way that anybody could say that what my experience wasn't real. And what I felt, nobody talks about to the depth that I talked about in those books. And so I started realizing that part of my mission, my soul mission, is to release trauma. And I declared this at that event to people all the whole time. I'm like, I know how to do this. And I'm sitting here going, I know how to do what? I'm not sure I know how to do this. Well, I don't know yet. Or maybe I do, I just don't have it consciously in my mind yet. Because I've lived my whole life working on releasing trauma. So I do know how to do this. I'm just not sure how to put this in a form yet. But I'm not going to go down this negative place of releasing your trauma. It's about bringing in love, because once you start releasing trauma, love comes in. And that's the main point, is that love starts coming in when you release that, because you're creating all this new space for something else to come in. So last week I was a woman that I've known for many years, and I've watched her grow and evolve her business. And she sent an email about something that somebody we both know sent an email, and it was about fear and the recession coming on and so on and so forth. And for some reason, I felt compelled to send an email to her. And I said, first of all, I don't believe in recession. And secondly, I don't think we should be coming from fear-based anymore, because that is just an old paradigm. It's time to change it. We need to come from a place of empowerment. Well, she sends me this little videogram, and I was blown away. I was so blown away by what she said, how she responded to me, and I was totally blown away by all of it. And I responded back and just kind of gave her an update of what I've been doing for the last several years, because this was like, what's happened in your life in the last 3 years? And so I sent that email back to her. And what I saw when I was saying that was, there was this vision of my future self that I've seen her before, but not like this. I mean, she's so close, and I was staring at her going, oh my God, can I really step into that? And then it was like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I leaned into it. And part of the reason I think this is coming in is because I'm coming back from that place of living from my future self. You know, if you want something, you live as if. And so this future self that I have of who I think I want to be is who I'm wishing to become more of. Which then, of course, brings all your limiting beliefs up. It brings your paradigms up. It brings all sorts of crap up in your face of, oh my God, I have to get rid of this. But what's been interesting is, since I've been doing the show, people have been sending me books, and I find them very interesting to read, the stories that people are writing about. But this book was by Dee Wallace, and she didn't send me this book, but the book was Born. And I read it and I finished it, and she talked about the 0 point, which is where you go back into the emptiness of the nothingness of our universe. And you go back to the true essence of you, and you go in there and you create from there. And I thought, oh my God, I think I've done that occasionally in my life, but not knowing how I got there, but I created everything I wanted. And so when I did that, I was like, okay, I'm going to work on this and really come up with moving through, and it's about self-love and that type of thing. And when she talked about that, I just sat there, and she said, you know, everything we do in our life is a habit. And I read this and heard about this, but I don't think I ever realized to the degree of how much of a habit that we are living in. And so I'm seeing more and more of how my life is a real habit. So we're going to see if we can get Julia on, because I hear she's waiting. So we'll find out. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And we do have Julia Marie in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and read her bio, and we will bring her on in just a moment. Julia Marie was just like you, driven and goal-oriented with a plan for her life. A series of spiritual transformative events changed everything. More than 3 decades later, she is ready to share what she's learned so that you can benefit from her hard-earned insight and accelerate your spiritual growth. She tells the story of her awakening and how she learned to live guided by the voice within in her book, Signals from My Soul, a Spiritual Memoir of Awakening. Julia Marie is a gifted trans-dimensional healer, intuitive medium, and experienced spiritual teacher. She founded the Academy for the Intuitive Arts in 1997, and the courses and coaching help sensitive women and men as they take the next step in unlocking their spiritual potential. She provides spiritual consultations to a global clientele and looks forward to bringing her grounded and practical approach to spirituality to your audience. Welcome, Julia.
Thanks so much for having me. Let's put a caveat on there. It doesn't include any technical skills, so it's a
Yeah,
challenge for me.
well, and that's okay because I have a friend who comes on once a month, and one of these days we're actually going to see her face because we have constant technical difficulties when she and I get together. So we can never figure out why we're having problems. We just have them, so it's all good. So, Julia, tell us a little bit about your journey of how you became an awakening spirit. And, because I read your book and it was very fascinating. So, I would love our listeners to know a little bit more about you.
I was just like them. I had a plan for my life and was active duty military and decided to go to law school because I had the urge to speak for people who had no voice. Turns out years later, I am speaking for people who have no voice, but I also don't need a law degree to do that. The series of spiritually transformative experiences created a spontaneous activation of healing energy, and round red circles appeared on my body where I later discovered chakras are, and a wide 2-inch wide stripe up my back. So it was like a Kundalini awakening. I didn't know that at the time. And I engaged in conversations with invisible people that showed up in my living room and taught me everything I know.
So, please elaborate a little bit more on that because I'm sure that when you discovered some of this, you were probably a little bit frightened because I know that when I first started doing this and I was open to receiving information from spirit, they still startled me. I mean, did you have that when you
Oh, I
discovered
was
that
more than
things
I would say that I was more than a little afraid. I would say I was a lot afraid. And also, being a perennial skeptic, I challenged whatever it was I was encountering because I wanted to prove it for myself that I wasn't going off
crazy?
my rocker,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah, exactly. That would be the word. One of the chapters in the book is it spirit or schizophrenia? So,
yeah,
yeah.
I get that.
The hearing voices and the seeing things that aren't
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
I get it. I remember all of that of opening the chakras and moving the chakras and raising the kundalini and hearing knocks on the walls and then discovering that they're knocking because they're getting my attention. So it was like acknowledge that they're here. So I did. And I remember one time I was in the bath shower and I'm the only one in the house and I hear Kathy. And I open the shower door and go, yes. And I'm thinking, okay, what's that about? And you should have been terrified because somebody called your name and you're in the house and you're naked in the shower. And I was like, yeah, okay, so everything's fine. But that was when I was starting to get more comfortable with where I was at. But, it was still in the beginning
Mhm.
just kind of terrifying to learn all that. And I always tried to find teachers, and I believe you did too, tried to find teachers and was told, well, you're the teacher. And I'm like, but I don't know anything. And it was just a call for me to go further
True.
inside and trust my own self.
Yeah.
So I know that you, at one point in your book, when this was all happening, you were actually an active practicing attorney and you had a child. So how did that unfold for you as you're in this 3D world and this spirit is calling you over here and then you have this child, and what did that entail for you as far as really taking that to the next level of trusting your gut when they ask you to do something when in all practicality it doesn't make sense to you?
It was important for me to find where my line was, where my limitations were, and as long as my child was in my direct care, her needs came first. So there were times when maybe I felt like I needed to be moving, but I didn't because she needed to be able to finish high school, for example. So it's a balancing act, I would say, and everybody has to make their own individual choice. They have to choose for themselves how far down the rabbit hole they wanna go, basically.
So how did your child feel about this when this was happening? Because, she's right there with you, so she's experiencing things. So what did you talk to her a lot about it? Did she have her own personal experiences during this time? What was her reaction to what was happening with you?
Well, she was pretty naturally connected herself, so seeing people that aren't there and that kind of stuff is normal for her. So it wasn't as obviously strange to her as it might have been to somebody else. So I will say that sometimes she would get the side effect of me asking for something. She would also get the same kind of impact. In other
Okay.
words, when I asked for, "Please give me a sign, give me a sign to let me know I'm following spirit correctly," and it came in the form of a very unique hot flash. Well, she started getting the same kind of hot flash even though she didn't ask for that particular benefit. So she got
So,
the side effects of some of the things that were happening because she was living in the same house.
right. Makes sense. And then if you weren't receiving the message, then she received it for you, right?
Sometimes she did, yes,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That was what I was surmising out of what you were saying, is that if you weren't getting it, she was going to deliver it
Mhm.
to you. Because I know that my mother
Yes.
would pray to Saint Teresa, and every now and then and I remember one time I brought her a rose. Well, I didn't know she was praying a novena to Saint Teresa, and that's part of what she was about being presented with a rose, and your question was answered, or whatever your prayer was. And I remember the first
Mhm.
time when my mother, and this is, I mean, I was already very connected anyways in my life, but my mother wasn't. And so I think I was just a messenger for her. And I think she had issues with me because I was very connected. And I helped her to evolve and grow with this, because we had many conversations about her guides, and I told her what her guide's name was, what he looked like, all of this, where he was standing, and she thought I was crazy. And then she began to see him too, and where he was standing. And so I think I scared her, but then she also got there, so she would tell me strange things that happened in her house when she was going through her wake up process. And she just thought it was kind of, we laughed about it because I made it very light, because it's not something to be afraid of, as you know now, but you didn't then.
Yes,
And I just wanted her to be able to
exactly.
progress. And I think when we do that, when we can stay calm in our being of what's happening, I think it helps bring ease to other people when they're in turmoil. Because I know that based on your book, you traveled all over the United States. Whenever Spirit said,
Mhm.
go here, and you had all these amazing experiences and just trusted. So, talk about that a little bit more, as far as when those messages came in, and then what was your thought process about going through it, doing it, trusting it? I mean, what was that journey? Because sometimes we think we're crazy when we do it, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes I've just gone, okay, I'll go. And other times it's like, you want me to do what?
Well, here's what I know, that here's what I've learned, that I will know what I need to know when I need to know it because the universe doesn't waste energy. So asking why I'm being asked to do something is a waste of energy. So I found a certain pattern unfolding as I started on this journey of following. If I was to move, I would start getting the feeling that where I was living was not home anymore.
Mm,
And then I would find myself being pulled to a certain area, and whatever town I became obsessed with, there was always a house for rent there. So that's how I knew if if I'm supposed to go there, there'll be a place available. And there always was, no matter how small the location was. So I just learned to trust.
I'm trying to think of how to phrase this because I think you were in, I don't know if it was Montana or Idaho, someplace up in the north area, and it was very remote, and you found the house. Then I think the white buffalo was up there, or you met somebody with the white buffalo. And but that turned out to be something a little different than what you were expecting, as far as thinking she was very enlightened, and then there was a gathering. I mean, I'm in the right place, right, with this thought, where something left, kind of
Yeah, there
abruptly.
was there was a small location. That was the lesson in discernment, and that was a step along the way to finally finding the white buffalo. But the lesson in discernment was challenging but important, and I believe I was sent to that place specifically to learn that lesson. And I debated over whether I should put it in the book. Should I make it all love and light? But there's many sides to a spiritual journey. And sometimes difficult lessons are part of that process. And so I wanted to be honest about my experience. So
Can you
the lesson
elaborate
in
on that a little bit
discernment.
more? Because I think discernment's really important. It's a very important lesson.
Yes. And very long story short, I was living in Taos, New Mexico, and had the feeling it was time for me to go. And I was being drawn north back to Montana, where I'd already lived once before. And I consulted with a Native American pipe carrier who I really respected her connection. And she said, "Oh, yes, this little town is on your path. And oh, by the way, I know a teacher there." Well, I got all excited because I hadn't had a physical teacher the entire time I'd been on my path. And so I made my way to the town. Yes, there was a house available. Okay, it's time to move. So I packed up everything and I went there and was very excited to meet with this person. And when I first sat in the house, I had this odd feeling in my stomach, like I call it a lurchy feeling. It's kind of like flip-floppy, but not good butterflies. And I ignored it. I thought, "Oh, maybe I'm just nervous." But that happened more than once. And I came to recognize that whenever I get that specific feeling, that means that whatever I'm engaging in is not for me. I need to extricate myself from that situation. So I learned what my don't go there signal exactly feels like, but it was a traumatic way to get the lesson. But it's not something that I don't overlook it now. When I get that feeling, I know what it means and I don't test it.
Okay, I want
And it
to.
was after that lesson that go ahead.
Okay, well, we have to go for a commercial break, so I want to elaborate on that a little bit more once we get back.
Yes.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is KathleenMFlanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And we have Julia Marie in the room with us today. And she was talking and describing a little bit about her lesson in discernment. And I would really like you to elaborate that to where people really understand what discernment is. I know what it is for me, and I can elaborate, but I want to hear how you determined your discernment. So even though you had that feeling, there were things that were leading up to what happened in the rest of that situation. So if I'd love to get a little bit more insight on that and how you felt and what you really learned from that situation. Because I know it wasn't the first time you've had it, but it might have been the biggest one you learned.
Sure it was. My human self wanted something. My human self wanted a physical teacher. And so my desire for a physical teacher was overriding my guidance. And I can see that now looking back. And so I just encourage everyone, especially if you have those kinds of, wow, I think I need to go see this person or learn from this person, always pay attention to how it really authentically feels in your body before you commit to something like that. It's just, I don't know how else to explain it.
No, it makes sense because I know that when I was younger and I would go to, like, if I couldn't get any messages from spirit, if I was blocking or it was just not time to get anything and I was supposed to like be wait and patient, which was not my middle name by any stretch of the imagination, I'd go to a psychic reading and a psychic would say, well, you're not to know. And I'm thinking, and I remember I used to get that a lot and I used to get really angry about it. And then the last time it happened, and I made a declaration that if I'm paying you to give me a message, you either give me a message or you refund my money, because I'm not
Mhm.
paying you to hear you're not to know. That's why I'm paying you the money. And obviously you don't know anything and you're not very good at it. And so I pretty much I got that. I got the message about that. And then I had this one other psychic friend I met, and I saw her just doing this. And I knew she was tuned in, because she's like, oh my God, how do you do this? I said, well, they're all
Mhm.
talking at once. They said, yeah, that's what they do. Well, how do you put up with it? He said, oh, I've gotten used to it. I've had this my whole life with them talking 100 miles an hour in my head when something comes up. And so I knew she was the real deal because of what that was, and whatever the message was, I don't know at that point. But to me, it was somebody else who really understood what goes on inside of me.
Mhm.
And I also, for my discernment, like you said, trust your feelings in your gut, because it's there. Because there are people that are very, very, very good of being so-called spiritual, and they know the rhetoric, they know the words, they know how to play the game, they know how to talk really softly, and I'm so in tune, and all that fluff and buff. That's bullshit. And I just sit there, and it's like you just sit there and you listen, and you're just feeling like, God, do you really buy this crap? And I
Yes,
remember
they do.
they do buy it. I don't. And I remember I used to do this, and my ex-husband really hated me for doing this, but I used to let them talk, and I would ask questions, and they would talk, and they would put the noose on their head. They would tighten the noose, and then they would kick the
Mhm.
stool out from underneath them. And the look on their face was priceless for me, because it got the message across without, calling them that they were liars or whatever it was that I
Fake.
felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it was a perfect way to demonstrate that you might be conning the whole world, but you haven't gotten me, because of that feeling inside. And then there are other times when there's evil around, and I don't care if people want to believe it or not, there's evil. We have a yin yang society. I had somebody put a spell on me, and I kept getting like something's wrong, but I couldn't find what that was. But I kept going in, and I find it and I
Mhm.
pull it out, and then they would put it back on me again. I'd get rid of it. And this guy, he actually worked. He lived and was a demonic lord. He actually did the double thing. I learned this afterwards. Um, Anyways, he when he did that, and he was so arrogant one time where he said, I can make Kathy do anything I want. And I knew right then and there who it was, what was going on, and it never happened again. But I had to go so deep inside, because something was wrong. I sounded crazy, I felt crazy. But
Mhm.
we have to trust that feeling, because we always know. And even if we're not doing it, if something's just kind of like, God, something's wrong. Because I would do that, like, something's wrong. And I kept trying to look for what's wrong, because that is such an uneasy feeling when you're in the process of trying to discern something. So what did I do? I just sat down and it's like, okay, what is going on? And try to isolate where this is. And then once I would isolate what I thought it was, then I would pay attention to if it was somebody else or a circumstance or an event, and look at where
Mhm.
my thinking was in that. Because they were warning signs. That's how I look at discernment, are warning signs that something's amiss and you need to find it, because great harm can come to you if you don't follow through and
And
listen to your true self.
asking what's going on is actually a way to get a clue or a hint or an answer about that. So if we don't understand what's coming to us, ask to be shown or to understand, and eventually that will come to you. You had that
Right,
heebie-jeebie feeling like somebody was on your back. You knew this is not right. So I say to
right.
people, when you receive it, believe it.
That's a hard one to just get away when you've got something that's just creeping on you and you can't figure out what it is,
Mhm,
because something's wrong and you know it's wrong. So yeah, a lot of times I ask, and then sometimes if I couldn't get it, like if I would get dreams and I wouldn't understand the dream, I was like, you need to deliver this message in a way that I can understand what it is so I can do what I need to do. I mean, sometimes talking in
mhm,
symbols wasn't enough, because if I didn't know the interpretation of the symbol, it wasn't helping me to discern what was wrong. So, so I had to learn how to communicate with my spirit guides too. Now they just talk. There's no mumbo jumbo of symbols or something. I mean, I've learned to read symbols. I understand symbols a lot better, but there's still times when it's like, okay, you want me to get this, then you need to like either tell me directly or put something in front of me so I get the message, because I want to know what that message is. I'm not getting it
mhm,
clearly. I'm not understanding you. Something's amiss. And I don't know if it's me or if it's you or if it's both of us. You never know. So that's why I thought, we have to ask. If we don't ask, they're not going to help us, because they're not allowed to do
and
anything unless
asking
we ask anyways.
exactly. Well, and asking for validation, that
Yep.
is a question, and we can ask, "Okay, I need to know, I need to understand if my understanding is correct," and you will get the answer. You know, "Ask and you shall receive." I know that's a biblical thing, but I was raised Catholic, so a lot of my interaction with spirit is kind of within that framework, even though I'm not a practicing Catholic, but still, it doesn't say you might receive, it says you will.
Right.
So we have to trust that we will get the answer, even if sometimes the answer is no or not now.
Well, and sometimes I know that in my past I've asked for things and other things came up, or certain things where I was guided to go, our lives switch. And then you're really upset because you wonder why this happened, and the inconvenience, and then it's thank God, thank God, thank God when you look back and you find why the reason spirit did that, because we
Mhm.
don't see the big picture. We will never see that big picture. We're not
Mm-mm.
capable of seeing the big picture, but they see it. So what they do is they kind of guide and maneuver. And I've learned to not get angry or upset, because it's like, okay, well, if there's a shift, there's something I'm not seeing, and they're protecting me, because that's what they do. They're going to do it in the interest and your best interest at heart. They're not going to sabotage. And because especially when I was younger and like, I want this boyfriend and this guy, and thank God I never had some of these men, because I mean they were pretty bad. But you're a little kid, stupid teenager or whatever, early 20s, stupid. And but I thank God that it was like that, because on a whole I didn't go after a lot of craziness, thank God, because I was already crazy, so I didn't need any more help. I just needed to figure out why I was so crazy. And so that's why I was on the journey, because I didn't know anything else. The only answers, because nobody knew back then, as you well know, we didn't have the light that's on the planet today.
Mm-mm.
It was three steps forward, two steps back. So I mean, the only way we could find our answers was to go inside, because there weren't that many gurus out there yet. And I
Well,
found
we
that to
each
be
have our
very
own
frustrating.
guru.
Yeah.
We do each have our own guru, and once we get that and begin working, I like to say live from the inside out. Once we start living inside oriented, everything can change, because now you're not looking for an answer outside of yourself. Every single one of us has everything we need inside of us. We brought it here with us like a knapsack full of supplies. And we need to remember, and sometimes maybe remind ourselves, we already have everything we need. We just need to remember that we have it.
Exactly, because we're co-creators with God. So the God within us is us. I mean, that's why we're godlike. I mean, we were created in His image and likeness, so we're godlike. So why do we think that we can't do something that God has done? He created the world, He created us. We can do the same thing. That's what our design is, to come down here and create our heart's desire. And somewhere along the line, we got lost along the way, and we got into like abuse and evil and darkness and money and sex and all of that stuff. And it's, it doesn't serve any of us, because it diminishes us and then we compare ourselves and, all that weird stuff. But we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we will come back in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV. And we have Julia Marie in the room with us. Julia, what is one piece of advice you would offer our audience to help them move in a different direction to achieve their dreams or become a better person?
I would say trust yourself and know that you're not alone. Help is available. All you have to do is ask, and remember that communication is a two-way street.
How can our listeners get a hold of you?
They can go to my website, www.juliamarie.us, and pretty much everything is listed there, including how to access my podcast, which talks about a lot of the same things you do, but maybe a different perspective sometimes.
It's okay. It's what it is. We all have a different twist on our messages that we're bringing out to the world. It's a symbiotic relationship. That's how I see it. Some people resonate with you more than me, and vice versa, and it's all good. There's more than enough. That I truly believe that. I believe in cooperation and cooperative working with people, because I think that makes us better, and we lift each other up instead of tear each other down. So what are
for the most part, I have a fascination with near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences and the awakening process. So a lot of the episodes that I do are focused on that. That's what I meant.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah. That's perfect. Have you had Nicole Kerr on your show?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I did too. That was an interesting story. I read her book too. I was like, whoa, that was pretty intense, and to go through that. And I just remember when she was talking about how she didn't want to come down because of what she was going to have to go through. And I was like, yep, I was the same way. It took me 6 months to accept my body when I was born. I didn't want to be here because of the pain and trauma I was going to go through. So I understood that.
Yeah.
And I think some of us know that there's a really big mission that we have, just like you waking up, coming out of being a lawyer, and Spirit comes because you have a grand purpose. And the fact that we chose to come in and do it regardless of what, physically we knew what we were going to cope with. We still chose to do it anyways. And I think that's the greatest love that anybody can bring to humanity right now, is opening their heart, sharing, being vulnerable, and letting them know that they're not alone, because we have a world that really needs help. And we have a youth that's committing suicide that I think that there's no excuse for that. And that's part of what I want to do, is help them. They're our future, and I think that's the main thing. And that's what and with what you're bringing, I mean, they're beautiful topics to talk about, because people do have a fascination for them. I know I've had near death without being nearly dead. I've had near death experiences. I know what it's like to go through that. And I remember when it happened, it was a meditation, and I thought, oh my God, if this is death, I welcome it, because there was like nothing. I mean, all that stuff was gone, and it was total freedom and love. And So yeah, I think it's very valuable what you bring to the table. So I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today, even though we had a little bit of a hiccup in the beginning, but you made it. And I'm happy about that.
Stubborn.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I that's my middle name. And sometimes you're told to just not be so stubborn. It's like, okay, be stubborn in the right ways, not in the bad ways. So thank you again, Julia, for coming on the show today. So
Thanks
I want
for
to thank
having me,
everyone.
Kathleen.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. I want to thank everyone for joining us. And if you found value here today, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm at Kathleen M. Flanagan. My books, Dancing Souls, The Call, The Dark Night of the Soul, and Awakened, are available on Amazon.com and KathleenMFlanagan.com. Be sure to check out Kathleen M. Flanagan for a list of the services and products that are being offered there. The 3-minute de-stress meditation is available absolutely free. There is no email required. Be sure to visit awakeningspirit.com and take advantage of the 40% discount at checkout by entering bravetv into the coupon code. And the same goes for grandmasnaturalremedies.net, where you'll receive a 20% discount. Next week, I have Jim White coming on, and he is a father who is going to talk about his experience of raising a gaggle of kids and what he's learned and how to teach people to be better parents and really working with their children. So next week, I will see you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. And from my heart to yours, I hope you have a fabulous week.